Hey guys, so I thought it would be fitting to talk about controversy today because, if you guys don't know, I got into a little bit of controversy myself yesterday. Now, before my video yesterday, I had a pretty graphic intro.
Daddy's dead.
And I didn't warn people about this intro, there was no disclaimer at the start. It was kind of violent. It was kind of violent, and I'll leave the video linked down below so you can click it if you want to see this intro. I'd rather not describe it here, it's quite disturbing. But yeah, there was a lot of comments about it, and you know, I just thought that was quite controversial, so why not make another video about controversy today? But today, we're going to be talking about what the most controversial rap albums are. Albums can cause a public uproar for multiple reasons, so I'm going to be looking at the ones today that pissed the most people off, explaining why they did, and giving my own personal thoughts on them. So this is CDTVProductions, and let's jump right into this video.
Here's a little something about a nigga like me. Never should have been let out the penitentiary. Ice Cube will like to say that I'm a crazy motherfucker from around the way.
Gotta start with a classic example right here. If you want one of the most popular and early controversial rap albums, this is the one. Now, the reason why this album was controversial is the exact same reason why it was influential. This was the album that really popularized gangsta rap, and it made some members of the public and music critics uncomfortable. This album came off as pretty rebellious, with lyrics about murdering people, lyrics perceived as misogynistic, and some songs that mention being violent against police officers. I'm pretty sure we know the most famous example.
Be the police out of shape, and when I finish, bring the yellow tape to tape off the scene of the slaughter. Still.
And in the 80s, this wasn't exactly common. That's why it shocked people, and it made NWA stand out. In fact, some songs on here even got the FBI involved, who sent a letter to NWA's label claiming that the album encouraged violence and disrespect against law enforcement. NWA couldn't even get security for their tours because the police often refused to be associated with them. If that isn't controversy, I don't know what is. So as for how I view it, honestly this album appears to be pretty tame nowadays. Now, I wasn't even close to being alive in the 80s, you know, I'm a 90s kid, so I remember all that shit from the memes, so I don't really know the kind of impact this had when it came out. Obviously, I've heard about it, but I haven't experienced it. But I mean, it's just the raps on here are so blunt to the point of just being comical to me. Like, I think songs like Gangsta Gangster are actually really entertaining and comedic, even though they are technically really kind of realistic songs about gritty street life in Compton. That's just how I feel it. Nowadays, it's a fantastic album, but I just always smile whenever I hear it. Especially whenever I hear Ice Cube rapping some really over-the-top stuff. I think the combination of dark lyrics but funky beats were juxtaposed so well that the darker side of the music never really unsettled me. But no matter how you perceive it, all this album did was help NWA become one of the most successful hip-hop groups in history.
Get rid of that devil real simple. Put a bullet in his temple. Cause you can't beat a nigga for life, crew. With a white Jew telling you what to do.
Seeing as we were just talking about the NWA, we might talk about one of its most prolific members next. Ice Cube. Ice Cube? Cube? I always get comments about how I say that. Cube.
Ice Cube.
Ice Cube has always been a source of controversy, whether it's from his NWA career or as showcased here in his solo career. Cube has always been someone to speak his mind, and that brings out anger from a lot of listeners. However, for this one, there was a bit more than the typical accusations of misogynistic lyrics and lyrics that glorify violence. After this album was released, Ice Cube was called racist, particularly against Asian people. Whilst, no, I don't think these lyrics prove Cube is a racist, the lines on the song Black Korea come off as pretty disrespectful.
So don't follow me up and down your market. Or your little chop suey ass will be a target of the nationwide boycott.
Now, I believe his heart was kind of in the right place here, but it didn't translate to his music well. He made the song after a Korean store owner shot a 15-year-old black girl to death after an altercation. Cube was obviously enraged by this story, as is to be expected, rightly so. And being the outspoken rapper that he is, he made a song about it. Unfortunately, it comes across as a case of responding to racism with racism, and it doesn't help anyone. This track, along with No Vaseline, were removed from the UK versions of the album when it was first released, as these songs were seen to be racist and anti-Semitic. And that's not all. In 1992, the state of Oregon also banned the display of Ice Cube's image in retail stores because of this album. I can actually see this one being slightly justified in its controversy, but only mainly for the Black Korea track. I mean, even Ice Cube has admitted that he might have made some miscalculations with this album, but he has said that he doesn't regret what he said on here.
Tell her that I love her, and by next week you can hear her shriek from the gashes in her cheeks. No, I'm not a freak, I am meekly a creep. The neighbors by the creek says my house stinks and it reeks of a chic girl. Streaks.
Now we're gonna cover some more 90s rap albums in a minute, but I thought we'd switch it up a little bit first here and look at one of the more modern rap albums that has caused a bit of a stir. And after one listen of this album, it is clear to see why it would offend some people. I'd recommend listening to Troncat if you want to hear some of the most graphic and intense lyrics that this project has to offer. Now to me, and most people, it's incredibly clear that Tyler is rapping as a character here. These songs don't offend me because I'm more fascinated, if not slightly grossed out, by the stories he tells. It's almost like a character study of a deranged man that Tyler has created to rap from the perspective of. But a lot of people didn't take it that way. People have called this album dangerous, the classic M-word, misogynistic, and hate-filled due to the dark fantasies rapped about in here, which mention rape, torture, and a plethora of taboos without any hesitation. He was also criticised for his very liberal use of slurs against gay people. This not only drew backlash from the public and critics, but it would be stepped up to another level when Tyler was banned from the UK for up to 5 years for lyrics that supposedly promoted violence and intolerance. And this ban mainly stemmed from lyrics on Tyler's debut mixtape and this Goblin album. And this is the point where I have to completely disagree with the backlash. I mean, banning someone from a country due to their rap lyrics is kind of absurd. Of course, unless their lyrics really are made with hateful intent, but that's so obviously not the case here. Not to mention, you have some rappers that rap about the exact same subjects with the exact same amount of intensity that haven't been banned from the UK yet. Now, I'm not saying ban them from the UK as well, I'm saying ban none of them from the UK, because that's so ridiculous. I honestly think it's unfair to punish someone that heavily for rapping as a character, but that's what happened. I think it's fair to say this album definitely caused offense to quite a few people.
Sitting at home with my dick on hard, so I got the black book for a freak to call.
And now we're back to another earlier album that caused a bit of a shitstorm, and that is Two Live Crew's As Nasty As They Wanna Be. And just looking through the track list and the cover of this album, you can tell it was one hell of a sexually explicit project. Fuck! And just looking through the track list and at the album fuck me, the album cover? What's a clover? And just looking through the track list and the album cover, you could tell that it's one hell of a sexually explicit album. There we go, why did that take like 3 or 4 takes? The theme of sex was so over the top here, like ridiculously over the top, and it was actually another one where it's just pretty funny. I mean, there's barely anything offensive about this. However, this album was actually the first ever record to be legally ruled as obscene in court. A year after this album dropped, people in court were looking to have this album banned. They managed to get it banned in Florida, and members of the Two Live Crew were actually arrested after performing their songs at a club in Florida where their music was banned. They went to jail over this. I get that this was a bit more of a taboo back then, but isn't taking this to court a bit too far? You know, just for an album that had some provocatively sexual lyrics? I think a writer called Christopher Hitchens summed the situation up perfectly with this elegant quote. He said, "Sheriff Nick Navarro and Judge Jose Gonzalez Jr., the two people responsible for ruling the album as obscene, are a pair of racist shitheads who should be told to fuck right off." Wonderfully put. output. I mean, really, how you can arrest someone over an album like this is beyond me. However, eventually 2 Live Crew were acquitted and the obscenity ruling was overturned. Because of that trial eventually working out, rappers can freely talk about sex all they want now without fear of being persecuted, and we have 2 Live Crew and their legal team to thank for that.
I don't do black music, I don't do white music. I make fight music for high school kids. Put lives at risk when I drive like this. I put wives at risk with a knife like this. Shit, you probably think.
And time to end this off the only way it can be ended. You can't really have a list about controversy and not have Eminem on it. It just doesn't work like that. This right here was one of the most controversial rap albums ever made because everybody had heard about it. Your gran probably heard about this. Your gran's gran probably heard about this. Your gran's uncle's grandson. Well, actually, it wouldn't have been out that long ago, but your gran probably definitely did hear about this. Actually, it came out in 2000. What the fuck am I saying? There was some white guy rapping about killing women, homosexuals, having sexual relationships with his own mother, and lines referencing school shootings. And he was selling millions of copies doing it. Just go to tracks like Kill You, I'm Back, Kim, and Criminal, and just from those 4 songs, you'll have an abundance of lines that are bound to offend every demographic out there. The thing is, there's a reason why a lot of people didn't find this offensive, and that's because Eminem was so self-aware. He'd say the most obscene stuff, but would be making a commentary on society at the exact same time, and that's the genius behind it. He knows controversy sells, but he doesn't just use it for cheap shock. He uses it to make a point. At least, he does most of the time. But when you're selling that many copies, you're bound to annoy some people, and that is what happened. He was accused of being a misogynist, a homophobe, a bad influence. Lynn Chaney even bashed Eminem for this album, calling him a rap singer who advocates murder and rape. Now, hold up there, Lynn. Advocate is a bit of a strong word, don't you think? He's not saying you should go out and commit murder and rape, but I guess that's just not how you see it. She's basically one of those people that think, like, music like this makes people more violent, and by one of those people, I mean fucking idiots. And she actually said that about this particular album, that this is dangerous and could be making people more violent. Shortly after the release of this album, Eminem was also almost stopped from entering Canada to perform at a live show as Ontario's Attorney General was disgusted when reading Eminem's lyrics. A Canadian lawyer even suggested letting Eminem perform the show just so they could prosecute him with violating Canada's hate speech laws, which sounds like a pretty sneaky and malicious thing to do. Luckily though, he was allowed into Canada in the end. People even held protests against this album, but that didn't stop it from winning a Grammy and propelling Eminem into stardom. When talking about controversy, this album has to be brought up. It's one of my favourite albums of all time, and it's every bit as divisive as it is brilliant. Well guys, that is going to be it for the video today. Thank you so much for watching. I just thought it would be fun to do a bit more of a kind of informative video like this while still giving my opinions on everything. So let me know what your favourite album on this list was, which ones you think maybe deserve to be here, which ones you think didn't deserve to be here at all. For almost all of these, I don't think they deserve to be on here. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This will probably be another one of those kind of longer videos, so I hope you guys do enjoy that. And I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This is CDTVProductions signing out. Remember to follow me on Twitter under the name @CDTVProductions. Thank you very much. Good night.